What is going on, everyone? I'm that Scottish nerd that brings you Pokemon TCG content. If that's something that interests you, I do upload multiple times a week, so be sure to subscribe so that you can see my future videos. In today's one, we do have some new decks from the Battle Style set, which was just released. So in today's video, we're looking at the Rapid Strike Mienshao and seeing how it stacks up against some of the more popular meta decks and how this is able to counter it very effectively. As always, there are timestamps in the description if you want to jump past the deck profile and into some matches, but first up, we do have that deck profile. So taking a look at the Mienshao here, we have the Spinning Whip attack. It does 90 damage for a fighting and a colourless, so not the biggest amount of damage, but you are also confusing the defending Pokemon. That's going to be very much a problem for the opponent, as they're going to be forced to find switch cards or air balloons, any kind of way to retreat out into different Pokemon. And if they don't have energy on another Pokemon to attack with, that is definitely going to be an issue for them. As well as shuffling this Pokemon and all cards attached into your deck, so it's going to be a hit and run style deck where we can go into something else to further disrupt the opponent. We can mainly go into this Octillery, which has an ability here called Miraculous Charm, and it prevents all damage done to this Pokemon by your opponent's GX and Pokemon V. So when we have a meta that we do right now where it's very much dominated by VMAX Pokemon, GX tag teams and basic Pokemon V, this Octillery is going to be great for stalling out your opponent, hitting them for a reasonable amount of damage and a nice effect, going into the deck and then picking up this Octillery so they're forced to find another attacker that they can actually hit you with. And of course, if they do have an attacker they can hit you with, you also have a couple of copies of Pokédoll in here. This is going to make it so that your opponent has to hit into it and then they don't take any prize cards. Nice little item card that you can reuse as well as a switch, considering if it doesn't get knocked out you can put it back into your deck to reuse later. Now if you do want to use this deck, you're going to be needing the Rapid Strike energy to cover the attack cost. That's the whole way that the deck functions. It can only be attached to a Rapid Strike Pokemon, but it counts for a fighting and a water, or water and fighting, or 2 fighting, 2 water, whatever combination you want. But in this case, we're using it for the 2 fighting energy in order to cover the attack cost of a Mienshao. And that means that we can just use it as one attachment rather than having to attach 2 fighting energy over 2 turns. Now to make all of this work together nicely, we also have the new Rapid Strike Octillery, which has this Rapid Strike search ability, allowing you to search your deck for a Rapid Strike card, any Rapid Strike card you wish. So the Octillery and the Remoraid are both Rapid Strike Pokemon, you can search these out, along with the Mienshao. It is a Rapid Strike and a Mienfoo Rapid Strike Pokemon, so you can search these out with Octillery as well as the Rapid Strike Energy. And then of course for our last Pokemon here, we have the new Urshifu V, a 1-1 line of it, since it is a Rapid Strike Pokemon that we can make use of with the Energy. And we're mainly focused on the VMAX here. It is a fighting type with 330 hit points, so very respectable, and its first attack for 1 energy. It allows you to deal 150 damage when it becomes your active Pokemon. You can also put 2 Rapid Strike energy onto it and use that second attack to deal 120 damage to 2 Pokemon, but typically we're focused on the first attack here, since it can make up for some of the numbers, since we are only dealing 90 with the Mienshao, but it is all depending on the matchup that you're up against, and you can change your strategy and whether you want to use the Urshifu or not. The rest of the deck is pretty straightforward. It's all very much consistency focused. We have Quick Balls and Evolution Incense here maxed out at a 4 count, as well as 4 copies of Great Ball in order to just find some of our Pokemon early on. You could use other things like Pokemon Communication, but for the most part I want to actually just grow my hand size and find these Pokemon rather than putting Pokemon back into the deck. As for the supporter cards, we have copies of Boss's Orders to bring up Pokemon, take easy knockouts on things like Dedennis and Crobats, since we're hitting perfect numbers, doing 180 damage when we're hitting for weakness. We can also use the new Rapid Strike Karina's Focus here. It is a Rapid Strike card, so we can search for it with Octillery, and we have 4 copies as it does allow us to draw cards until we have 6 cards in our hand. Very nice. we do have the 4 count of Marnie and 4 count of Professor's Research, as they just are very strong cards overall. And then of course we have the couple of copies of U-turn board to slap those onto our Altaria, since it does have a 1 retreat cost, and if your opponent doesn't knock it out, then you're going to need to retreat every single turn to go into the Mienshao. And to finish it off here, we do have the couple of copies of Ordinary Rod. You will want to recycle some of your Pokemon just if you are discarding them early on, or if some of your Altaria get knocked out. And we also have the Chaotic Swell, just to counter some of your opponent's annoying stadium cards that they might want to be using. You can counter those very nicely. As I mentioned, you're going to be taking advantage of weakness, picking off easy prize cards onto Dennies and Crobats, and generally being very annoying for your opponents. This is a fantastic anti-meta deck, since we have the stall options in Altaria, as well as just being very annoying with our attack, confusing our opponent and forcing them to switch out. So let's show off how the deck works, as that is the best way to get an idea and an understanding of how this deck is going to run if you don't want to play it yourself. As always, give the video a like if you enjoy it, and let's get into the matches. Alrighty, starting this match, we have a Zacian in my opponent's side, as well as the Jirachi. We see a tag call coming down from them, so perhaps they're playing ADP. Yep, they are indeed playing ADP. Architecture Palkia, if you're not familiar, and they did grab the Guzma and Hala. So interesting builds. You usually see a more turbo build focused around energy switches and metal saucers rather than special energy. So definitely an interesting take, and kind of an earlier build, as I remember some people playing a Guzma and Hala build when Sword and Shield was first released. But this should hopefully be a pretty reasonable matchup, considering we have our Altaria. My opponent will have a lot of switching cards, but hopefully we can get around that, no problem, and we always have our Urshifu VMAX to back us up as well. We'll go with a Quick Ball to get rid of one of these Evolution Incense, and I want to find a couple of Pokemon here. I think I want to go for the Mienshao here, just so that we have another one down and in play, and then we can also hit them with the Marnie, stopping them from playing the Guzma and Hala that they got on that previous turn, and just generally reducing their hand size, since they did have quite a large hand after that Intrepid Sword. We did get into another Swablu, which is nice, and we can pass it over to my opponent. We do have the Mienshao for next turn, along with the Karina, of course. Hopefully we can get into a fighting energy, while the Rapid Strike, which is counting for 2 fighting energy anyway. Hopefully we draw into that, and that will get us an attack, and also a knockout if they leave the Jirachi in the active here. We see them get the energy switch off of the Stellar Wish, so they are playing energy switch as well as the Guzma and Hala. We'll see if they get the attack. They do get the Altered Creation GX attack off here, so it's going to be a difficult matchup since they are able to take additional prize cards. But as I say, if they fill up their board with GX and V Pokemon, we're going to be able to prevent them from even doing any damage, since we have Altaria at our disposal. My opponent is attaching to the ADP once again and picking the Rusted Sword onto Zacian, and there is the GX Altered Creation attack. We have the Mienshao for our bench. We can put the U-turn board onto the active and go for the Karina in order to draw 4 cards here. We unfortunately miss energy, but we do have a Pokédoll that we can put into play, as well as another Mienshao. And we're definitely going to be retreating into this Pokédoll and force my opponent to knock that out instead, which will make it so that they don't take any prize cards and buy us another turn, hopefully drawing into the cards that we need. Really looking for that Rapid Strike energy. It's going to be very difficult to actually find it, since we don't have an Octillery set up at the moment, and that is the main thing that you want to get set up with this deck, is the Octillery, so that you can search out all of your Rapid Strike cards, and the deck just flows so much better when you actually have that Octillery in play. My opponent goes for the the Ultimate Ray, and they get the energy in play that they need, and of course they are attaching one onto the Jirachi, so they are planning to attack with the Jirachi at some point. It doesn't have a particularly stunning attack, it's only slap, and it will be doing 60 damage since they did use the GX attack. So we can go for a Great Ball and see what we get into. We get the Altera, which I can definitely grab, and we could always take the Remoraid, but we'll go for Altaria for now. We have plenty of Quick Balls still in the deck if we want to make use of those and grab ourselves the Remoraid. And we'll also use the Professor's Research here, of course looking for energy, which we are fortunately able to find. And we have a Great Ball once again we can make use of. We get Octillery, which is a bit unfortunate, all evolution Pokemon. We'll take the Octillery, or we don't really want it going on the bottom. We have the Swablu as well. I think we'll take the Octillery for now, I guess. Doesn't really make too much of a difference. And we'll retreat into one of our Mienshao, attach the Rapid Strike energy, and we could always make use of the Great Catcher here as well. Using the Great Catcher to bring up that Dedenne, we'll take 2 easy prize cards, so kind of like that there, and we can go for that. We'll get rid of the Swablu here as well as the U-turn board. Don't really need either of those right now. Bring up that Dedenne and we can take 2 easy prize cards. Definitely a good start to this matchup. We definitely would still love to have the Octillery in play, but we can go into our Altaria that we have with the U-turn board and see if my opponent gets the energy on the Jirachi. Even if they do that and they start attacking with the Jirachi, we do have the Rapid Strike energy in our hand, which is great, so we'll be able to respond with a knockout on that Jirachi. And they're going to be really stuck for attackers, which is exactly what you want to see in this meta. Really forcing your opponent to ultimately concede the game because they're not able to attack with anything against your Altaria, being able to block attacks from Pokemon GX and Pokemon V. So we see my opponent using the Bird Keeper as well as a Metal Saucer to attach the energy onto Jirachi, and then they also get the switch to switch back into the Jirachi, but as I said, it's not going to be enough against our deck. Since we have the energy, we can go for the Great Ball here as well, grabbing us the Remoraid, which is fantastic. We can put the Marnie into play. Don't really mind if we put Octillery onto the bottom of our deck, because we have plenty of means to search it out through Great Ball and Evolution Incense, things of that nature. We also get another Pokédoll as well in case we need that. We have the U-turn board still in play, so we can easily just retreat for free and attack with our Mienshao, ping it back into the deck, which is fine because we can promote our Altaria and our opponent is not going to be able to attack into us. Using that Marnie was fantastic timing because it reduces our opponent's hand and they only have 5 cards to work with here, so they're going to have to try and find a boss's orders in order to get around our Altaria and take a couple of prize cards here. Let's see if they manage to do it. They have the Quick Ball, so they could go and grab themselves a Dedenne GX or Eldegoss, something of that nature, Crobat to draw cards, but instead they're going for another Zacian, so perhaps they're just stunning the deck and maybe they already have a Dedenne in their hand, or they just straight up have the boss's orders in their hand and they're bringing up the Remoraid, which is definitely the worst choice that they could have made there. They absolutely wanted to bring up the Mienshao, as that is our attacker, so taking that out of play for us would have been huge, but instead they brought up the Remoraid, preventing us from using a Octillery, which is still reasonable, but definitely do have potential for us to get the attack off here. We do also have the VMAX that we can use to attack with, but I think we're going to have to discard the whole line with our Professor's Research. Unfortunately, we're going to be losing a Ordinary Rod as well. So I think we can put our VMAX into play, but then that gives them another option for boss's orders, so I don't really like that. I'll just go for the Ordinary Rod. We'll shuffle in the Remoraid, as I honestly forgot to check to see if our other one is in there, so we might as well shuffle it into the deck. We'll go for the Professor's Research, looking for the energy. We unfortunately aren't able to find energy, so we're just going to have to put down another Mienfoo. We can use a Quick Ball here and discard an Altaria. We're not going to be using multiple Altaria, so we can get rid of one, despite the fact that I did just shuffle in a Swablu, but it's fine, we'll ignore that for now, and we'll pass it over to my opponent. Let's see if they have another boss's orders available to them. If they do, that's going to allow them to bring up another Pokemon to get a knockout on and take an additional 2 prize cards. But instead we see the Professor's Research, which is great. That's no boss's orders on my opponent's side. You can see what they discarded here. They got rid of 2 Zacian as well as a reset stamp. So definitely not any cards that they want to be making use of there. And they're going to go for the tag call, grabbing Mallow and Lana as well as Cynthia and Caitlin. Definitely making use of that. Cynthia and Caitlin is going to allow them to recycle their boss's orders. But we do have our Octillery in play now, so we can use our Evolution Incense here. That's going to get us our Mienshao. And then making use of our Rapid Strike Octillery to get the energy that we need into play. And we can go and grab that. And we can also go with an attack as well as boss's orders. So if we want to attack into a Zacian, we could here. Although taking 3 prize cards on this ADP is going to be huge if we can do that, because it will close out the game. So definitely want to start hitting into this ADP as much as possible. I think we'll hold on to the stadium as well, since just in case my opponent puts in a stadium of their own, we can remove that by playing our stadium. So we'll get the attack off, doing 90 damage and hitting them with the confusion, forcing our opponent to find a switch card here. Now they do have the Mallow and Lana in hand, as we saw from the tag call, but instead they're opting to play Cynthia and Caitlin, grabbing back that boss's orders from the discard pile. And they're able to play the Quick Ball here, getting rid of a Quick Ball. And let's see what Pokemon they grab. This is going to be a sketchy couple of turns, as my opponent has the boss's orders, so they are able to take up 2 more prize cards on these coming turns. We have the Professor's Research. I think I'm going to be playing this as we do want to find a energy and another Mienfoo. It's a bit unfortunate that we're going to be losing out on a boss's orders. Just in case my opponent switches out the ADP, we want to bring that back into the active spot, but getting an attack off here is going to be more crucial overall. We are going to have to search out for our Mienshao. It's a bit unfortunate, because we really needed to find a Mienfoo. I mean, we do have the Quick Ball, I suppose. Is going to have to make do. And we'll grab ourselves the Mienfoo here. Perhaps should have held onto that Remoraid. I'm kind of instantly regretting not holding on to that in case my opponent uses the boss's orders to bring up the Octillery. It's going to hinder us a little, but we have the second Mienfoo down at least, so we can go for another 90 damage, shuffling back into the deck, and once again promoting Altaria here. So my opponent has 180 hit points, or 180 damage, or some 130 hit points remaining. So we're going to have to do another 2 attacks if we want to get a knockout here. And this is where it's going to be a little bit concerning, because it's really just giving my opponent time. And that is all they need here, is time to find boss's orders. They have one in hand. And then on these coming turns, they're going to want to try and find another one, or a way of getting it back at least. And we see the switch, or retreat, manually retreating, losing all of those energy. So if we can get the attack off once again, then that's going to be great. But they do have the boss's orders they are going to be using, and they do knock out the Mienfoo this time around. So we're going to be looking to use our Octillery and get another Mienfoo into play. Hopefully it sticks and they don't have a boss's orders, but instead they're just going to concede. So I guess they ran out of boss's orders or ways to get them. Very nice. That's definitely what you want to see with this deck. Getting into our next match here, we're starting off with the Mienfoo once again. We get a great ball for the Mienshao, which is not very good, as we definitely wanted a basic Pokemon here. And we don't really want to be attaching energy either, in case my opponent has a way of discarding it, like with the Giratina, which discards a special energy, and I'm sure there's a few other options as well. But yeah, definitely not a great start from us. Definitely wanted some quick balls, but doesn't look like my opponent is up to much either, considering we can just donk them here. They didn't have any other basic Pokemon, so we can just attach energy. I think this is actually going to be a draw, so maybe we should use Professor Research. I'm pretty sure it would be a draw if I also didn't have any basic Pokemon, but we got a Mienfoo anyway, so here we go. We can get a knockout, and destroy my opponent's lone Dedenne GX that they had here for a very nice easy win. I guess you can run into that situation sometimes. So let's get into a proper match hopefully. And we're going first this time around, and our hand isn't the best. We have a quick ball, so we can discard a Octillery and get ourselves the Remoraid, so that we at least have that for the following turn. But other than that, it's not looking too great. My opponent starts off here with the Salandit, so they're probably playing the new Salazzle from Battle Styles. That hits you with a whole bunch of special conditions, so definitely have to look out for that, as it's going to be a bit of a problem, but considering that we're shuffling into the deck, we'll have to see how well that goes. My opponent gets the Quick Ball, and they're going to be getting themselves another basic Pokemon, most likely the Grass type. Oh no, it's just the Dedenne GX here instead, so they're just looking to refresh their hand. Now we would really love a supporter card of our own, as that would allow us to get into some new cards here, hopefully find another Mienshao, as that would really set us up nicely for these coming turns. But there's the grass type I was talking about, it's Bellsprout, as it does go into the evolution. Is it Victory Bell? I mean, that's the stage 2, I forget what this middle one is, but we'll definitely want to get into that. And we don't have a great hand. I mean, we could use Boss's Orders to try and bring it up, the Bellsprout, or we could get a knockout on the Dedenne, and then we're going to be in a bit of a bad situation. So I think bring up the Bellsprout to prevent our opponent from using special conditions, because their whole deck revolves around getting special conditions on our Pokemon and then dealing big damage with Salazzle. So if we can take the Bellsprout out before that even happens, we might be in a good position here. And we are going to be shuffling into the deck and just left with the Octillery on its own. So bit of a sketchy situation, as we don't have any basic Pokemon, but hopefully this holds back my opponent and they don't have an answer for us. Let's see. They go into the Salazzle, they have it in their hand, they're able to evolve, they have the energy on as well. They have the Team Yellhorn and they're going to go for the attack, but they unfortunately get Tails on the Confusion, so they miss the attack. We have Chaotic Swell that we might as well put down, since we are going to be using the Professor's Research here. And we did get a supporter of the prizes as well, but we're not too bothered about that. We finally get another Mienshao, as well as a couple of dolls that we can put down here actually. We don't mind that too much. And we can also use Octillery's ability to search out a Rapid Strike card. It's a shame that we don't have any good way of retreating, because U-turn board doesn't quite work on Octillery. We'll just search out a Mienshao this time around. I suppose we could have gotten an energy to retreat and gone into a doll, but just getting set up for these following turns is going to be more beneficial overall, I feel. My opponent gets the second Salazzle into play. Let's see if they can get a heads on the Confusion this time around and hit through the Confusion. One of the downsides to using that deck for sure is the Team Yellhorn making both active Pokemon confused, and they get the Tails again. So they're actually going to be damaging themselves, and they just concede because their deck is just suboptimal and they're not going to be able to get a knockout on us. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Here is the deck list once again, just to go over it, and I'll see you in the next video with some more Battle Styles decks.